Hello and welcome to Adobe Live here on Behance. I'm going to be your host today, Aaron Nace, and I am so excited to be joining in the studio with Amina, a full spectrum, amazingly talented artist, visual, song, performance, literally her life is art. I'm so excited to be hanging out with you. Amina, how you doing today?
Aaron, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I just have been looking forward to this all week. And so this feels really good. I'm so excited to share this moment with you and everyone in the audience. Thank you so much for being here. I feel great. I had a healthy breakfast.
Yeah, you
I've,
did.
spent some time getting inspired, thinking about what I wanted to share with you all. And I'm just so happy to be here. So, yeah.
We're so happy to have you. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us today. So, kicking off, be sure you start your day off with the Photoshop Creative Challenges. These are going to be hosted by Wade Acuff every single weekday at 9 a.m. Pacific. Tune in and challenge yourself with a new prompt every single day. It's super cool. And for those of you guys who are joining us in the chat, give us a big shout out. What is up? So good to see you guys. Everyone is so excited. Bliss Art says, welcome, Amina. Hey, folks. Steve says, good day. Or good day, Amina. Oliver says, hey, Aaron and Amina. Everyone is super excited to see you in the chat. So thank you so much. And just like always, if you have a question or a comment you'd like to get to Amina, just leave it in the chat. I'm going to be joining the chat and kind of, going back and forth during the stream. So I'll be asking questions to Amina and kind of relaying your inputs to her. So let's keep this chat active and have some fun. Amina, I'm super excited. Can you tell us a little bit about what we're going to be learning today?
Yes, absolutely. So I am a photographer. Obviously, I'm here to teach you my color grading secrets, my techniques that really showcase how to convey some moods, some feelings, and really just showcase what it is that you want to tell your story through in photography using color. And so I'm going to be showing you how to edit a few different kinds of photos today. We're going to be looking at some live music photography. We're going to be looking at some broad daylight commercial editorial photography. And I'm going to show you how to bring out the best of those images.
Wonderful. I am so excited. And looking through your work, your use of color is stunning. I'm very inspired, and that's something that I've always wanted to improve. So I'm very excited about today's stream. I want to hear everything you have to say about color.
Oh, I love color. I love it so much. It's cool because I started out in the fine art area of creativity. I learned how to paint really young and match colors and use colored pencils, thinking about color theory and how different colors make you feel. And so when I discovered my passion for photography, I really carried over those ideas that I learned early on in life and applied them to my photography and my editing so that you can really feel that painterly touch a little bit,
Oh, that's so cool. I feel like, having that base in the physical arts really does translate over to photography, even though a lot of people think of photography as a purely technical art with, cameras and lenses and lights and things like that. I really feel like that everything you do, drawing, sketching, painting, it translates. It's all visual art.
Exactly. It's all visual art. And in my opinion, I really do think photography is just painting with light. So that's my take on it.
Cool. I dig it. Super excited. Yeah, well, everyone is very excited in the chat and ready to get going. So, Amina, whenever you're ready, it's all you.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into it. All right. Let me just go ahead and pull up my Lightroom Classic for you. So as you can see here, I just spent a few minutes importing some of my favorite photos from this shoot that I did with Nike for Air Max Day this time last year. Air Max Day just passed recently, and a friend of mine, her name is Selena Rodriguez. She brought me in on this project, this campaign with such incredible creative direction. Working with her was such a dream. And I had the pleasure of photographing Liliana, I believe her last name is Rodriguez. And she is a roller skater and just incredible at all these tricks. And we were able to make some really, really fun photos. And typically, what I'm used to is shooting during like golden hour or dawn, really early in the morning. And so it was really challenging for me. I felt a little bit of resistance shooting in like broad daylight where the sun is high and the lighting is like, you don't really know what you're going to get. Sometimes it can be a little bit too intense. And so I'm honestly really in love with how these photos turned out. And I'm going to show you how to bring out the best colors that you can get with these photos, especially if you're shooting in like high noon, Yeah.
Yeah, so, that's definitely like the most difficult time of day to shoot. Usually I'll just say, no, let's wait. It doesn't sound like a good idea.
That's usually my instinct too. And I was honestly so surprised. I have been such like a lifestyle photographer in the past. And so essentially this was, I didn't start using like reflectors and stuff like that until like very recently, like a couple years ago. So this was a fun one. We definitely brought in some reflectors for this, just one actually, but yeah. So typically if you're new to photography, what you are going to do when you open the Lightroom app is you're going to import some photos from an external hard drive or wherever you keep your photos. That's what I did earlier. So you don't have to wait and watch it buffer. But yeah, and then it does this really cool thing where it will sort it into some photos or folders for you. And you can keep everything nice and organized. So yeah. Yes. So the first thing we're going to do after importing our images, we're going to click on the Develop tab here. And I'm very much so like a very intuitive editor. I really like to just kind of like feel it out and edit until it feels good to me. So what I'm going to do is just kind of toggle the exposure, see if I can get it to a good place. And what's really cool about this as well, you can actually minimize this bar, this display bar at the bottom so that you have more space to work. And you can also hide this top bar as well so that you have the most possible space like while you're editing. But yeah, just keep in mind that that's all there for you. The two tabs I typically use or toggle back and forth between are the Library tab and the Develop tab. And so now I'm going to minimize this top bar so I have ample editing room in my creative space right here. And yeah, I personally really prefer a warmer touch to photos usually, but in this one, it feels a little bit too warm. And I actually like in the edit that I went with originally, I went very cool toned, but I'll get into that momentarily. So as I toggle the exposure, I want to find that right spot that really highlights her skin tone. I don't want her to feel muddy. I want to make sure that she's glowy, letting the sun do its thing. And I always like to bring up or bring out the shadows or minimize the shadows. And then often when I do that, I balance it out by killing some of the highlights, get a little bit of a more even photo, and I bring down the whites as well.
Nice. So it seems like you're kind of exposing for her skin tones, like primarily, and then kind of bringing everything else in to fit that.
Exactly. I kind of want to make sure she is getting her shine, and then I can adjust with any masks or anything like that if I want to change up the sky or maybe like blow out this area here, make it a little bit brighter. And yeah, so I always start with the skin. I like to scroll down to this area down here, the calibration. And I like to just bring it a little bit more teal than darker blue. And then I balance it out again by making it a little bit more orange than red. And honestly, in this area, you don't want to go past this like middle ground. I think it's not as realistic if you go all the way to the left or all the way to the right. It just looks funky. And I think that when we are just getting started with editing, often we can do that kind of thing and say, whoa, like it gets really trippy, you know, and fun. But if you are looking for a realistic or cinematic or something that just is going to bring you into that moment in a real way, that's what I'm really going for. And so I want to keep it pretty neutral, pretty light on that.
Yeah, I went through the same thing when I first started editing and found Photoshop. I just like cranked every slider all the way. Look how crazy I made this. And looking back on those photos, it's definitely obvious I might have been happier in the long run going a little bit more subtle.
Right. It's so easy to just, especially when you first get started and you know, you're learning about Lightroom and all of the presets that are available to you. I also love to just scroll over these, and you can see in this navigator area that as you just kind of feel it out, this is often part of the process as well. Just kind of like feeling out these like presets that are available to you and just seeing, you know, what might be a good direction at least. And you can take that into account as you continue to edit. And I just love that you can see the preview of what it might look like as you hover over these presets.
Yeah, it is nice. It's kind of like when you go to the ice cream shop and they let you try all the little flavors before you do your big order.
Right. That's a great analogy, actually.
I had ice cream the other
that.
day, so it's fresh in my mind.
Oh my goodness, that's incredible. I honestly, everybody go get yourself some ice cream. Treat yourself today and every day because we deserve it. We really do. And so none of these really spoke to me too much. Maybe this one actually. And sometimes I do like to just start with a preset and adjust as I go. I think that's what's really cool is that it gives you at least a starting point, right? To go off of.
Definitely.
I often also like to create some noise reduction in the luminance here, just to get a little bit more of a smooth finish. And I love that you can zoom in and really see the difference as well. It's noise, none versus some. It just creates a little bit of a smoother feel, which I really like. And then also along with some sharpening, maybe a little less. These photos, I was just so proud of. They felt like something that could really like live on a billboard, you know?
Yeah, totally. They have like a real life feel to them.
Yes. And the model, I just remembered her last name is Ruiz. I apologize for giving the wrong last name. But her Instagram is Lily Skates a Lot. So you should definitely check that out.
Nice.
And I do have these photos edited on my Behance, by the way. So check that out as well.
Nice.
Yes.
Check it out. And if you are joining us here in the chat, you can actually see at the very top of the page, you'll see a little info tab next to the chat tab. And you'll have Amina's information on there, and you can go ahead and click follow her right here on Behance and see her images.
That's right. Also, if you are watching on YouTube, come on over to Behance so that you can ask me questions. We can do some choose your own adventure type of thing. What should I edit next? Let me know.
Definitely. Yeah. And anything you guys put in the chat, we are going to work on. So this is an interactive live broadcast. Let's take advantage of the fact that we're live. And if you have any questions for Amina, let us know.
Let us know. So the next thing I'm going to do here, I noticed that there is this vignette that's going on. I used a pretty wide lens for this, by the way. I think it was like 16, it might have been 12 millimeter, like a real wide lens, which was so fun to me. And yeah, and so I don't really love vignettes. When you're using a lens that wide, you get this effect. But I like a pretty even one. So what I do is I go down to lens corrections and I toggle to the right, and boom, magic, it disappears. Just like that. It's pretty easy. Pretty
Have
incredible.
You ever tried the where it says profile down there next to manual? It says profile.
Sometimes I do remove the chromatic aberration, actually. Let's try that.
And then I like to check that other one too that says enable profile corrections, because sometimes it'll actually figure out what lens you use and it'll automatically fix it for you. But in this case, it did it like too much because you had the manual one there for you also. But you can see that lens there. It looks like you had the 14 millimeter 2.8.
Wow, that's crazy. Technology blows my mind every day. Like the more I learn about how all of these programs work and how AI is pretty much editing for us these days. But personally, I like a human touch, you know?
I completely agree.
This is looking pretty good so far. One thing my art teacher in high school taught me, which I still use to this day, it makes me laugh. Whenever we would be working on like a physical art piece, she would always say to set it down somewhere ahead of you and go stand at the back of the room and look at it from there so that you can actually evaluate the composition.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, me too. And then also like to kind of like flip it around and see objectively. So when you like flip something upside down, if you ever want to do that for some reason, by the way, you can go to library and you can use these little arrows and rotate the image. And yeah, I really love to like think about the framing as well, like rule of thirds and such, you know? You can like really look at where this the subject falls in the rule of thirds. If you're not familiar with that, it's like a grid, like tic-tac-toe almost, and putting the subject, that's a little composition hack, is putting the subject in one of those like dots that you might see.
Totally. And I think if you go into your crop tool here in Lightroom, you can actually have it pull up the rule of thirds as well.
That you can. Let's see it. Oop. That was too zoomed out. Also, I am just zooming in and out with my my two fingers here on my trackpad, which is really fun. I love to like just zoom in and out as I'm like checking out all of the little details. This is also helpful when I'm thinking about what I might have to remove later, like maybe just this little area. We'll get to that later though. But yeah, if you go to this here, you can actually see, as Aaron said, this rule of thirds. This is the grid that I was talking about. I don't know if it'll like let you keep it there, but it's nice to just check it out while you have it.
Definitely. Yeah. Nice to see. Just kind of like help you along. And I think, you know, after a time, you kind of get a feel for composition and you can kind of just like, you know, dial it in. But it is nice to have those guides.
Right. Absolutely. And so I feel pretty good about this photo, honestly. It wasn't too hard to touch up. But one thing I will also add here, let's see. Do I want to use this? We've got some masks that are really cool. Not on her eyes. I wanted to actually just bring out the sky and the color of the sky a little bit more. And sometimes I like to use, oh, go ahead.
Oh, we have a question from the chat. Rory asks, hey, all, just curious, if the sun was a bit too bright on the top, would you have to dim it? Like, what would you do to like make sure it's not so bright?
Great question. I will show you my little process. There's so many ways to do this, especially now with all of the AI tools that are available, like the sky replacement or anything like that. But what I've used over the years has been this linear gradient here. it's a mask that you can add, and it's showing you this red highlighted area because that is what is affected. And what I typically do, I just bring the exposure down and sometimes the highlights, sometimes the contrast, and just kind of play with that because it feels a little bit like it might be easy to do it that way. Or you could like use like the mask. This isn't very even actually. So what I would do in that situation, sometimes as like a painter mind, I would just bring the mask over and over and over again. Might not be the most effective way, but you know, that's what I've done. But there's other ways as well, for sure.
Definitely. There's no right or wrong way to do anything in Lightroom or Photoshop. I feel like it's, you know, whatever gets the job done.
Exactly. And that's where your creativity can kind of like step in, and you can decide how you want it to feel, what route you want to take, and just keep adjusting until it feels really good to you. That looks great to me. Let's see it. And loading. Okay. I'll give it a second. I think that looks pretty good.
Oh yeah, it looks really, really good. Where was this shot, by the way?
This was somewhere in Long Beach at a really cool skate park that Selena found, I believe, the creative director. And yeah, it was just really cool. She had this vision for all of the palm trees to really like have a moment, this like very classic LA look, you know?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, very much gives me the feeling of LA, and I'm imagining myself right there now. So
yeah. So let's ask the chat. I would love to know if you have any preferences on which of these images I should edit next. And I really love this just like library tab, by the way, because you can see all of the photos next to each other. You can also zoom in and out so that you can have like a closer look or a more like zoomed out look at the thumbnails. Yeah, let's check it out. Which photo should I edit next? I'm thinking one of these because these were so fun.
Those are
but
so cool.
You let me know, guys, gals, theys, thems, let me know.
All right. Yeah, just seeing the chats are coming in here. There's sometimes it takes a little second because of the stream, you know.
Of course.
A little bit of a delay because we are live. Philip says the bridge back one, which is I think what the ones you were excited about as well.
Definitely the ones I was excited about.
Yeah,
Let's
Kiss
see.
My Creative says the upside down one.
Absolutely. So these were so fun. Lily is so talented, and I can't believe this was like a real moment, you know?
I know. She's so like her smile is so infectious and large. It's fantastic.
Right. I was literally laying on the ground like to shoot this photo, like fully on my stomach, like, and it was just such a cool moment in time. So something like this, it's exposed pretty well, but what I'm gonna want to do is just bring it up a little bit more and just even it out. That already is really fun. I'm not like super into high contrast, and so with the reflector, it was already like very contrasty. And so I'm gonna bring that down. Let's see. And then again, we're gonna just check out some of these presets, see if there's anything that feels like it would be really, really nice. And you know, I'm gonna actually show you, we went pretty like traditional with the previous edit. So now let's just like see how far we can push it. Maybe just go into this one. Since we're talking about conveying moods and energy and that kind of thing, I'm all about intuition and energy and such. And so this is like a very therapeutic process for me. Like editing photos and just art in general. I'm very into like art as alchemy, you know, editing Definitely. As like therapy. And so when, right? It's like yes. we just, it can clear your mind in such a nice way. And so
It
with
really
this
can.
one, let's really like focus on the joy that is conveyed in this image. Let's focus on the whimsical nature. And what feels whimsical to me, like maybe those funky color edits we were talking about earlier, maybe that would actually work in this case, you know? So we can maybe do some fun stuff with this color grading tool as well. But again, we're just going to scroll through these presets, see what might feel good. That looks really good. Just scrolling over them.
Yes. Valentine says, "Oh my God, Amina, I am your biggest fan."
I'm your biggest fan. Now we have to connect.
Yes.
Thank you for being here.
And
This is so fun.
it's so much fun. Bobo is asking, may I know, were you using a flash or was this just with a reflector?
Right. This was actually just with the reflector. It was so bright outside that the sun was more than enough. But I love like flash photography in daylight. Another thing that I just recently started venturing into and feels really fun. That one like feels so good. I don't know why. It just feels like so, what's the word? Jubilant? Is that a word?
Yeah, that's a word.
Okay, so here we have these temp and tint tools. And one of my favorite quotes is like, you have to learn the game and learn the rules so that you can break them, right?
For
And
sure.
so this section right here, this is your best friend. It's the most basic. And then everything else is kind of just like extra. It's like the cherries on top, right? That's how I feel about it. I love this area like we talked about before. And yeah, let's just see how far we can push it. Let's see how we can break the rules. We know that I talked about how you should mostly stay in this central section when you're editing these hues and saturations and the calibration tool. But let's just experiment. Let's see what happens, because when you are feeling through these things, when you're actually conveying moods, you want to make sure that it's really speaking like what you want it to say. Like that already feels great too. This feels like really fun. Lily actually made some stickers out of one of the photos that we shot that day, which I love. Yeah. So playful. Like this just, when you go even more red, it feels like a 90s ad.
Yeah.
You know, it's so crazy
sure.
how color just does that. Like now that looks so 90s. It looks like a still from like a skate film or something.
It does. It looks like it was like printed on a like a bus stop and has been there for like a couple of years and the sun has hit it, you know.
Yes, awesome. Exactly. We're now getting into that like washed out feeling, and we're able to say like now it's bringing us to a different era in time, which is so fun. So let's continue to riff on that. And as we do, something that is calling to me is grain. Actually, I know that is counterintuitive, but it's like, you know, why not? Also, where is the grain here? I'm confused.
I think it's in effects.
I lost the grain.
I think it's maybe even further down, like past color grading. Sometimes I just close those little, you know, like
same.
Yeah, because it's like can be a little bit much. There it is in effect.
There it is. Sometimes, yeah, and like sometimes, yeah, accidentally toggling them on and off. But sometimes grain is actually really fun to experiment with. It can really like, I'm personally really into texture. Like, let's see what that did as we zoom in. Okay, now all of a sudden we have this really graphic, vintage looking image that we went from a very like commercial, clean looking photo into something that just feels really fun. Now it's like almost like it looks like it could have been a screen grab from like an old 90s PC or something. And
Definitely.
that's
It's so cool.
exactly, that's what I'm talking about. The way that you can really push things further and further towards a direction. Like maybe the creative director would say, oh, I want something really clean, really bright, really fresh feeling, right? And that previous edit we did would really execute that to that standard. Or they could say, we want something that feels really like a washed out film photo. You could say, okay, I'm gonna just completely blow out this image and I'm gonna mess around with some of these like funky possibilities and just see like that's even more different. And that is how you break the rules, you know? It's like it's such a video game to me, editing. I used to just sit here for hours and hours and hours and see how far I could push photos, what emotion I could get out of them, how I could like, you know, format them and re-edit them for different use cases. And it's just so fun. I hope that if you haven't already started on your editing journey, I hope this inspires you because I have a blast on Lightroom.
It is so much fun. And it's all non-destructive. So you don't have to worry about messing your image up. You can always undo any changes you make at any point in time, going back in the history slider. And like it really is just like a fantastic playground.
That's exactly what it is. As you can see, the history tab, it's on the left over here. And all of these edits I made, all of this experimentation, I can just go back in. If I don't like this one or this version, I can say, you know what? I liked that like more like cyan edit better. Let's go back to that. And boom, there it is. I can also at any point just go back to the natural imported image right there. Look how different that was.
So crazy cool.
It's nuts. And I'm not, well, I get too excited about this. Let me slow it down. But a lot of the time I do edit my photos in Lightroom to then go and like collage together later. And so I like to also consider how things are going to play together if I am, you know, moving or using different images and meshing them together. Like maybe this would fit better, or maybe this would fit better. Who knows? It all depends on the mood you're trying to convey, is my point.
For sure.
Yeah.
And sometimes I like to create like multiple different edits and export those out. And then I'll just put them on my phone and kind of flip through them over the next day or so and kind of feel like, what am I feeling? Like what feels good?
Right. That's exactly the process for me as well. I can't even tell you how many versions of photos I typically end up with before I have the chance to really like choose one. And sometimes that makes it even harder, you know?
Yeah.
Because then you have way too many that you like.
Definitely.
So right here, I'm just playing around again, following my intuition, following my flow, seeing what feels good. And I love this color grading tab here. It just allows you to push it again further and just see what like might work. You can also bring down the exposure in various areas, such as the highlights or the shadows. I'm getting like really funky here now.
It's so fun. It's so nice to see you pushing the colors so far because, you know, obviously Lightroom can be used in a subtle way, but it can also be used in a very artistic way like this.
Exactly. I also love to just switch up the hues, the saturation here. Do you know what HSL stands for?
Hue, saturation, and luminance.
Okay. Wow. Duh. This is why you ask questions, folks, because you can be looking at something for years and years and years, and it can be right in front of you, and you're like, and sometimes it's just obvious, but you know, goes over your head after you look at for something for so long.
Totally.
But here I'm just okay. So I think I pushed it a little bit too blue. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take it back to the original, because because I want to also just
Yeah.
bring it back, and maybe we'll do just like a little bit more of a natural edit again. Maybe we'll do, okay, so we went really far left. Maybe let's see how different it feels if it's really, really warm instead of really, really cool. And again, folks in the chat, let me know if you have any questions, like especially about composition in the moment, because this photo would have been so different had I shot it from a different angle. And
Definitely.
it was like, perspective is everything. It's a huge part of the story. And I want to emphasize that while, you know, Lightroom and Photoshop and all of these amazing post-processing tools are available to you, so much of the magic happens in the moment that you take that photo. And thinking about it and pondering it and meditating on it while you are present in that moment is going to allow you so much more flexibility in the post-processing process.
It's so true. And William asks, do you ever go with just black and white editing?
Ooh, yes, I do actually. I love black and white editing. Let's play around with that. I often just use some of these, do we have black and white presets here? Yes, I love these black and white presets. And it also helps you get a better understanding of like the light and like the details as well. Like now I'm looking at these here. Like, okay, maybe I want to heal these. I get really nitty gritty sometimes, and I could spend a lot of time just moving or fixing these here. I really love this heal tool, by the way, because it's just that easy to remove blemishes. And the future is here, folks. The future is now. Like
It totally
we are
is.
all magicians. It's insane. We can just make things disappear in real time. If you were ever wondering how to remove little nuisances like this, you can adjust the size, and all you got to do is click it. It ends up selecting an area that looks similar to the moment or the thing. And you can also move, you can move this guy around too, so that you can make sure that the area that you are cloning or healing is, you know, it's fitting in, it's looking good. Yeah, that is so satisfying. It's like almost, I'm just going to keep talking about how art is therapy because it's just so satisfying, like, to do that. But anyway, this is such a different feeling from the blue edit, from that high fashion commercial editorial edit. This just feels classic to me. It just feels so timeless. You know, this could have been shot yesterday. This could have been shot in the 80s. Again, using tools like, or using exposure and contrast and texture and grain to tell these stories of what you want this feeling to be. Like, this is, we can have it be really, really contrasty, bringing out those highlights and shadows and the whites and the blacks in the image. Honestly, black and white feels very cinematic to me. Yeah, that's really fun. I don't know why I just want to keep adding grain. It just feels like it needs more texture. So we're going to see how that looks. But yeah, Lightroom has all of these really, really amazing presets for you to just experiment with and play with, and so much freedom. I just feel so lucky to live in a time where this exists. You have these like more sepia tone, black and white presets that I'm hovering over. That looks really good. Yeah, these aren't very hard to navigate. At first, when I started editing photos, I was so intimidated with all of these I feel like a mad scientist sometimes when I'm editing photos, because it's just alchemy. It's magic, guys. Like this, we are blessed. We are blessed to have tools to take what's in here and put it on our screen and then print it out and blow it up. I've done so many art shows and like been in print magazines, and it just feels really cool to take something from an idea into like an executed end product. How are we feeling about this black and white edit?
Everyone is loving it. William or Rory says, I love the black and white editing. Got hooked after seeing Nosferatu movie. I think that's about a vampire, maybe? Let me know in the chat. Is that vampires? Nosferatu? Sam says, it's so good to see someone else get excited about how cool art is in the moment. Yes. It's
right.
I agree. I'm feeling inspired. I hope you guys are too. Aww. Everyone loves it. And Gary's asking, was there a reason why you decided to shoot during the midday sun at its brightest? And what are the benefits for different shooting times?
I love this question. I really do. So I often, for my shoots, I am the creative director, the photographer, the editor, the producer, which means I am scouting locations and putting together a mood board and making sure that anyone on my team is like, you know, available to be there at the certain times. And when I have the opportunity to work with other creative directors, it is such a treat because they handle the entire, you know, creative direction. They handle the mood boarding, they handle the keywords that you want to actually convey. They handle the location scouting, the styling, all of that. And so I literally just got to show up and do the shoot and execute the vision that the creative director had, Selena Rodriguez. And she had the vision of the high noon look, which is very like high contrast, you know, reflector or like daylight flash. And then she really wanted to emphasize those palm trees I was talking about that were in the background to convey that very Los Angeles look, you know? And so high noon, again, as I was talking about earlier, it was pretty challenging because I've never, not that I haven't been a fan of these kinds of images, but I felt like they were kind of hard to edit or work with. But again, incorporating the reflector, that gives you a lot more control over the lighting. And you get the chance to really illuminate the subject in a way that if you're not using a reflector, it ends up being a lot more difficult to highlight them. And so, as you can see, this is very contrasty. I think we had the reflector coming in from the right, which is why, or maybe the sun, you can really tell where the sun was at in images, which I think is really cool because the sun must have been somewhere up here. And that's why this side of her face is really lit up. And I don't think we were using the reflector as intentionally as we were, like, for instance, in this shot. This created a lot more of an even lighting situation, and we were able to, you know, not wash out the background too much and really like light up the subject. And the way that you do that is the sun is behind the subject or above the subject. You can kind of tell that the sun was really high because of that highlight on her forehead. And yeah, you just get these really, really crispy images in this like high noon, midday setting versus something in early dawn or later in the afternoon or evening, like a sunset shoot or golden hour. For example, I typically shoot from golden hour through the sunset into blue hour when I do like individual commission shoots. And those are typically like self-empowerment shoots or maybe like a lifestyle shoot or something that I just really want to create an ethereal feeling. And something like that, it just feels, it's like, first of all, golden hour is when the sun is getting ready to like set. And so the sun is really, really low and just lights up everything in this gorgeous golden light. And you really can't go wrong. There's no wrong way to shoot at that time. It's pretty magical. And then it shifts into this like dark, moody sunset vibe where, you know, the light can be pretty contrasty, you know? A lot of the time when the sun sets, it creates a really nice red or orange glow on the subject. Briefly, I can show you some of these examples I have on my website, because I can show you better than I can tell you. Let's give some examples of this golden hour lighting. So these photos here, this was golden hour at Bernal Heights in San Francisco. Really nice light. And let's see. Oopsie. But then you can tell that these photos were at that high noon time as well. And we actually didn't use any reflectors for those. And then some sunset, you get this moody, like kind of dim cinematic moment with the sun setting behind you and all of the clouds. And it's just really, really nice. I really enjoy that. By the way, this was such a cool moment. Make your dreams jealous. The bus just happened to like drive by my friend
So cool.
on the Golden Gate Bridge. Those are really old photos that kind of still blow my mind. I shot those with a Canon T3i back in like 2014 or 2015. And that just shows you how far you can push images with editing, because I mean, it was a great starter camera. I made some of my favorite images with those. And then,
and Bruce actually asks,
yeah,
what was your first camera and what do you use now? And how does it make a difference in your career?
Ooh, great questions. So when I had a Canon T3i, that was my very first camera. And I received that camera. I was actually the yearbook editor when I was in high school. That's a fun fact. So I was like editing the photos and making sure the formatting was all correct and the image sizing for to plop them into InDesign. And that was super fun. And the problem with that, it wasn't a problem, but it had a crop sensor. And so the images were usually really tight. And I was also shooting with a 50mm camera that was, I believe, it must have been like 2.8 aperture. I don't know. But right now I have a Canon 5D Mark III, and it kind of blew my mind, the difference. Like these photos are all shot with the 5D Mark III. This is FKA Twigs on her Magdalene tour. This is my good friend Pooja, AKA Fijiana. She's a musician as well. And that was some cover art we made. And honestly, it just gives a lot more of like a cinematic opportunity, I believe, the 5D Mark III. As you can see, all of these images just feel really expansive, like you could almost just step inside of them. Whereas the T3i, it created a little bit more of like a graphic feeling to me. It didn't feel as like as if you could step inside. And with the crop sensor versus an uncropped sensor, I believe the uncropped sensor, like the 5D Mark III, it has a natural, like, I believe the setting is, it's just more true to the human eye, I think is the best way I can describe it. But then I had a 70D, which was also a crop sensor. And some of these photos that I took in Hawaii were on that camera. And I was also pretty in love with those, you know? They felt really good to me. And again, I was able to push these photos really far and convey the feeling of like that whimsical explorative moment that I had in Hawaii with Lightroom and tell these stories. And now I have these memories forever. That is the primary function of photography for me. I feel like I have a really bad memory. And so photos really help me re-enter my memories or reactivate them. And any photo that I've ever taken, I can really pull myself back into that moment. I think tomorrow I'm going to edit a lot of my travel photography, so stay tuned for that, including photos that I took in Egypt. I have a family over there and they live right across the street from the pyramids. You can literally see the pyramids of Giza through their living room window, which is nuts. And I will share that photo tomorrow, so stay tuned. I'm actually working on a book and a series, so I will share more about that tomorrow as well. And yeah, okay, back to the regularly scheduled program.
So excited. Awesome to see your photos from all of your travels, and everyone is loving it. And Emma asks, what do you like most about your job? Is it Lightroom, Photoshop, lighting, cameras, lenses, art? What do you love?
Wow, I love that question. What do I like most about my job? Honestly, being a photographer for the last 7 years has really brought me into some of my favorite moments of all time, which include, traveling or shooting concerts that I might not have had access to, or connecting with people that I might not have been led to connect with originally prior to, them reaching out about photography. Or I feel like I've had many different eras in my photography career, such as when I first got started, I was doing so many portraits and just running around San Francisco with some friends. And it was really, really fun, doing that. And just shooting photos of everybody creatively who I was meeting at that time. And I was meeting a lot of photographers because of photography, because there were photo meetups that you could attend and that kind of thing. And so imagine 300 photographers walking around San Francisco, taking photos of each other and the environment. And that led me to so many amazing creative connections that I wouldn't have made beyond that. And that really got my career started. After I was just passionately collaborating with all of these people I was meeting, people started to ask me to take photos for them or shoot their wedding or their birthday party. Or, what feels the most special to me is being able to photograph a moment that is not going to be recreated, something special like a wedding or an engagement or a concert. Those are really fleeting moments for me, and photography allows us the opportunity to kind of immortalize these moments and keep them forever. And so it just is such a gift to me when I am let into a very a very intimate moment in time, and I'm given this access to kind of be that fly on the wall that captures all of the magic that unfolds in these very intimate spaces. Imagine a bride getting ready for her big day, or imagine this is Quinn, the Quinn cat. She is a fantasy soul musician and one of my favorite singers, and having the opportunity to shoot her concert recently as she opened for JoJo, which JoJo is iconic, by the way. If you don't know, now you know. But so is Quinn. And so building a relationship with her as a photographer and being able to shoot this concert of hers as she went on tour after the pandemic, by the way, because in the pandemic, she had plans to go on tour and then had to cancel, and then was able to live out that dream 2 years later. And so to me, photography is history. I feel like a historian. I feel like this is important work. And I have the opportunity to connect with so many people in this intimate way. Editing is also super fun, but I think that connection that photography allows me to forge is really powerful, very long answer. I'm just very, very passionate about this.
No, it's awesome. It's so cool to hear. It's like, it's more than just like the technical stuff. It's not so much like the, you know, aperture or what lens or specific camera. It's more like a broad approach to like life and history and art and people. And that seems a lot more like long-term sustainable than, you know, having it based on any specific piece of gear or equipment or technique. You know, it's more like your approach to life in general and how art documents your way through your life.
That's precisely it. It really is a journey and a lifestyle that I've chosen to opt into, and a practice as well. It's a practice and a process, right? It's something that I'm going to be growing with forever. I will always be a photographer, no matter what creativity, like medium I am using at the time. It's really the lens of an artist that I am like living through.
That's awesome. So cool. Everyone in the chat is absolutely loving it and super excited to see the photos from this, the concert.
Yes, so let's get into these photos from this show. I actually was editing them, and so as you can see, I imported 900 photos.
Totally.
I have this, when I was in high school and in yearbook, I went to, I think, one workshop, photography workshop, that stuck with me for my whole career up until this day. And that was, oh my gosh, 10 years ago that I was in high school. But what stuck with me was the person who was leading the workshop was very much so speaking from a journalism perspective and talking about how sometimes in these like environments that everything is moving so fast. Like, I know this is counterintuitive to some people, film photographers, don't judge me, but I like prefer to overshoot than undershoot. I would prefer to shoot 1,000 photos just to make sure I got that one special in between liminal moment versus waiting for the right shot to present itself. And I feel like I'm always looking for that right shot. I'm very attentive when I'm shooting events like this, like a concert or a conference or a wedding, because, you know, if you're looking for that right shot, it might happen right in front of you and it's gone the next instant. So I'd rather just make sure I have the angles that I want to shoot in. And, you know, maybe you're going to catch that light in their eyes that is just so magical. So I take a lot of photos, and my process is to import them in the selection area and kind of cull them that way. And then I go through again and I flag my favorites, which narrows it down about 50% or so.
Yep.
And then from there, I either use these stars or these color tabs to make my final selects and narrow it down further. And so for me, it's when I do a large event like this, it's different when I shoot portraits. I definitely shoot a lot less photos when I'm in a portrait session than when I'm shooting a concert or event. But this was definitely one of those moments where I shot a lot of photos. And from these photos, I think I'm probably going to have like 50 to 100 super solid like bangers, you know, like those are going to be the ones. But I like to start, and yeah, I take a long time with my photos too, especially I think the selection process is like the longest process. But so I already went through and I started culling some of these. The red I usually use for like the absolute must edits, the yellow as well. I think I just chose red. Maybe I chose like the ones, let's see, what did I do? Oh, I used the star to narrow it down even further to about 200 of these photos out of 900. That's pretty good, I would say.
Yeah.
Did I go all the way to the 5? I just went to the 1 so far. Okay, so 200 out of 918, not bad. So what I typically do from here, this is why I love Lightroom for like batch editing, because especially like oftentimes when you are editing photos from a concert, you kind of want to edit them pretty fast. Usually the artists will have a pretty quick turnaround time since they want to continue promoting their tour or their show. And yeah, but these I decided to take my time on and go through slowly. But what's cool is if you didn't know, you can actually copy and paste and edit in Lightroom, which makes things go by way faster, especially with images that like have the same lighting situation and, you know, that you might only need to make some small adjustments on. Sometimes the lighting can change and like really vary, but luckily for this show, it was pretty unanimous or uniform. Looking for the right word.
Totally. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I imagine it's kind of tough with all the different colored lights and things like that.
Exactly. It so is. So let's start with one of these. This was an edit that I did already, but again, I'm going to actually just reset it. And yeah, see what I did here is I edited one and then I copy and pasted it all over, like pretty much all of the photos to just get one uniform look. And then individually, like especially with a batch of photos like this where the lighting doesn't vary much I like to, like how we were talking about conveying moods earlier and editing for different kinds of creative direction, or like what you are trying to share, what is the story here. And so I'm going to show you how we can, all of the various ways you can edit concert photos. So let's go back to the original photo. Let's show you the original versus the edit I did earlier. Actually, the edit I did is a little bit flat. Good to know. So we're going to go back to the original photo. And honestly, I snapped. I snapped on the photo. The composition is really fun. She's centered. She's elongated. I shot from very low. I was in, you know, that pit area where you see photographers at most concerts. And when you're shooting these shows, you often only have the opportunity to shoot the first 3 songs of the set. So for this one, I think I did shoot the whole set, but that's something to keep in mind. And so that's why you want to shoot very, very fast and just make sure you're getting all the shots like in that moment. What I typically do to kind of create or diversify like the color palette, again, I like to either play here in the hue and the saturation and the luminance, the HSL, and kind of just see where I want to go. And then I also go here where I'm going to start back. I'm going to start back at this bottom calibration area and just see what I can bring out. Maybe I can bring out a little bit more blue, make it some more dynamic. And it's interesting because I was telling y'all earlier, again, we should mainly stay in this like center area, but here it actually works to bring it all the way over to the left, this blue primary, because I want it to be a little bit more dynamic in the colors here. And so doing that gave me the opportunity to really bring out that blue and
so cool.
And also like highlight the pink in the background. So that already is like a little bit more dynamic, more interesting of an image than it was before. That's a good start.
Definitely. Yeah, it's so cool. And it, you know, it totally changes based on the lighting of the photo, like what would be appropriate for different use cases.
Right. And that's why I say, you know, you got to know the rules to be able to break the rules, because understanding how all of these like tools work for you in different scenarios is crucial. Like, and then you're going to be able to kind of just let your mind do its thing. I feel like I edit very subconsciously now because I've done it for so many years. And so now I kind of know, okay, I can toggle this and then I can toggle that. And instead of like being so focused on the technical side of things and saying, okay, I know that maybe this is a little bit too blown out or whatever, just do what feels good. There's a lot of I mean, you can definitely focus on the technical stuff, but at the end of the day, a photo is something you're looking at. And so to judge the success or the amazingness based off of how it makes you feel when you look at it, I think is a much better it's a much better way to evaluate an image rather than saying, well, I know that in most concert photos the exposure should be 0.32 and I don't know, you know. I think that using your intuition, your gut is going to tell you a lot, and you can make like very fast judgments by asking yourself, oh, does this look good? Does this feel good to me? Does this feel like how I felt when I was actually witnessing this experience? That's how I evaluate things a lot of the time.
Definitely. Yeah. Trust your gut. It's always right.
Yes, it is. So again, I'm just bringing down the highlights and the whites. I pretty much do that on most photos because I think it evens it out a lot. And then I can like from there toggle the exposure. Contrast actually works pretty well in these kinds of images. So I'm going to actually leave that where it was pretty much, just adding a smidge more contrast there. And then we're going to bring out some of the shadows, see how that looks and feels. A lot of the time as well, that thing I mentioned about my art teacher zooming out or like looking at something from the back of the room, I kind of apply that by looking at this navigator area.
Totally.
Yeah, I also imagine like how this would look on different social media platforms. A lot of the time when I am sharing work, it's being consumed through an iPhone. And so this is a fun way to think about it. This navigator area is probably about the size of your iPhone screen. And so you can imagine how people are going to be like experiencing this image that way as well.
Totally. I feel that. And a lot of art that I make now is vertical for that reason.
Yeah, that's exactly why I edit mostly vertical photos, by the way. I also just think there's so much like, I like the idea of different like stacked composition, like viewing something up and down, but also like horizontal images. They look so good on a full screen. I wish more people would check out photography on their desktop. But that just also motivates me to print out my work more and like blow it up and see it that way, because that is a really fun experience. I used to have a Etsy shop where I sold prints. And it was like one of my biggest joys to print out my photos and sell them at different markets and online. I shipped so many photos and different types of artwork all over the world in the past 10 years. And it just is really, really fun to think about.
Yeah,
maybe I'll bring those back.
Yeah. Seeing photos printed out and in person is really, it's like a whole different feeling. Like it feels so much more real and tangible rather than just everything digital.
Right. This photo is actually really speaking to me. It looks like she is holding and harnessing this ball of light here. If I were to go in and bring this into Photoshop later, I would totally like add a ball of fire or something.
Dope. Right
here. Yeah. That's fun. Something about photos as well, you can push them so far, especially in composites. I do have an Adobe Live out where I teach some composites, by the way, so check that out. But a lot of the time when I'm editing photos, I think about all of the different ways I'm going to iterate upon them or transform them. I think about how they might impact culture. I think about how other people are going to feel when they're looking at them. And I think about legacy. And so those are all important things to think about when you are editing photos. And also context matters. Obviously, you're not going to be, well, maybe you will be thinking about legacy when you are working on like a product shoot, but there's different times and places for different kinds of frameworks in photography. It's so much more than the technical aspects. Yes, that is a huge part of it, but I think that the human touch is really our perspective and the context we create within and for. And yeah, just want to leave you with that. But how are we feeling, chat? Do we have any colors we want to see me experiment with? Anything like that? I'm kind of just toggling this. Maybe we'll move on to another photo. That looks pretty good. I really like how you can see the texture in her pants now. And maybe I might bring out the shadows a little bit more. Editing in Lightroom is a lot of like editing or adding and taking away. So maybe you're adding more black, but then you're taking away the shadows, and maybe you're adding like more exposure but taking away the highlights, or vice versa. Maybe you're adding the highlights, taking away exposure. I really think about it that way, and it helps me kind of like imagine what is going on. I think that looks pretty good.
Yeah, it's looking awesome. And Anthony says, your passion for photography really comes across so positively. I'm really enjoying hearing your commentary and seeing your process in action.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. I really appreciate that. I honestly go through so many phases with all of my creative practices. Sometimes I'm more excited, and sometimes I feel a little bit more jaded. But what I do to bring myself back into that gratitude space and like joy and that childlike passion is talking about it in moments like this, where I'm such a gratitude is the attitude type of person. And as soon as I remember all of the things and that photography has given me in my life, I just can't help but think about it in a positive way, and that's why like work doesn't really feel like work to me these days, because I get to do what I love and it gives me so much. It gives me opportunities, connections. I have a chance to express myself. I get to always challenge myself and push myself and connect with other photographers and creatives and contribute to culture in the world. And what I really want to make sure that I'm doing is adding more beauty and joy into the world. That's my whole purpose in art in general. And so anytime I can do that, I'm re-lit up inside. I'm reignited. So thank you for seeing me. Thank you for seeing that I really do care. I care a lot about art and photography, and I just want everyone to be able to pursue that if that's what they want. I think it's important to just try if you've been wanting to try, and just start. If you've been waiting for like a sign to just start that thing that you've wanted to try, this is your sign. You can't make progress towards your goals and your dreams if you don't take that first step forward. And if that first step forward is just setting up some photo shoots with your friends or DMing your favorite artist and asking them if you can shoot their show, just try something. Just take that first step and don't overthink it too much. If you're not the best editor in the world or the best photographer in the world, your first day, that's okay. In fact, that's encouraged, because guess what? The only place you can go is up, right?
There we go. Feel it. Kiss My Creative says, gratitude is the attitude. Love that.
Gratitude is my favorite attitude. I love these stage photos here. Quinn was saying that was the first time she asked everyone to actually take their phone out. And it was so magical. Everybody took their phone out. She was singing. Everybody's hands were swaying. It was really
cool.
sweet. So I think, is this the raw photo? Let's check. You can always hit reset, by the way, if you are wondering, if you want to quickly go back to the original photo. You can hit reset, or you can go to the history tab and click import, where you'll see the original photo that you imported. So this photo, it already looks pretty good, but I kind of want to see the audience more, and I'm going to see if I can really bring them out. And I'm going to do that by bringing out the shadows. Okay, they were pretty dark in there. You can see everybody's joyful faces. It might be harder to do that, but to the best of my ability, let's see, or maybe there might be a better photo that I can do that with. And this is really the process. It's just going back and forth and seeing what photo really speaks that thing you're trying to say, or that kind of energy you're trying to share. This feels very sweet. You can see her friends and family in the front here, just like so excited and joyful for her. Yeah, it was really sweet. Let's try this one.
That's so cool. I mean, I'm just going to run to the restroom real quick. I'll be right back.
For sure. I will keep on editing.
Nice.
Oh, this is definitely better to bring out the audience. So as you can see, I have just brought out the exposure a lot more here. And a lot of the time, I'm not really into this overexposed look, but here it kind of works. She's like such like a light beam right here, and her audience is loving it. So I bring down the highlights and the whites, the shadows. And as you can see, I'm just kind of like seeing what looks best here, not thinking about it too much, just following my flow. And let's see. Bring up noise reduction. Now it's all smooth. Kind of gives that like very dreamy look, you know? We've got the the camcorder. Yeah, that looks pretty dreamy. And let's see what other colors I can bring out here. I'm going to go back to that camera calibration at the bottom here. And let's experiment with the shadows. I really like this because, whoa, that's different. That's really fun to me. As you can tell, I love like really, really vibrant color. And if that's too much, maybe I'll just bring down the saturation a smidge on both of these color channels. Let's just see. What's really fun is that with photography, there's so much opportunity for variety. I'm going to approach a commercial campaign differently than I'm going to approach something like a concert or a festival. And with concerts or festivals, you just have so much freedom to experiment with color, because that is what you're really trying to convey, is these feelings of what it felt like to be in that moment. I'm often thinking about the audience who's going to be checking out these photos. A lot of the time it's the fans, it's the artist, it's the friends and family of the artist, it's the people who might not have had the chance to be at this concert in person. And because of that, I want to really nail the feeling of what it felt like to actually stand there and experience it, so that, you know, to the best of my ability, I can share that experience with the audience. I don't know why I'm really feeling this green. Maybe I'll bring it down a bit, just so it's a little bit more variety of color there. And let's go back up. Let's check out these hues here. again, just kind of following my flow, experimenting. Ooh. As you noticed, when I changed the orange to this more yellow tone, it kind of created a pop of color here. And I'm always like thinking about, again, like we talked about, that rule of thirds. She's in a really good position in this rule of thirds. But if I wanted to create a little bit more focus on her, I might crop it in and put her at this position here, this this dot of the rule of thirds. Let's see how that looks. And now your eye just immediately goes to her singing. And then from there, you're brought to the crowd. It's kind of fun.
Super cool.
Something else to think about too, when you're editing photos, who knows, like a lot of the time I'm creating assets for social media or web or print. And when you are editing for those kinds of things, like maybe this will be a promotional flyer one day. And so I really like to leave a lot of negative space sometimes, because I like to think about, okay, if I were to hand this off to her and a year later she has another tour, maybe she's going to want to have a graphic designer add some text and tour dates and that kind of thing. And something neutral with a lot of negative space is a great opportunity for something like that. So those are other things to consider when you're editing photos, when you're cropping, when you are really nailing down a composition.
Yeah, definitely. You never know how photos are going to be used.
Right, exactly. And so you kind of have the opportunity to really just think about it and create a lot of ease for, you know, the life of the photo. Clarity is something that sometimes I add in, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I really like how it looks, and other times it just doesn't work out. Like this image, maybe not the best. Maybe I added too much noise reduction. But again, luckily, this isn't anything like super commercial. This is very much fun experimental editing. And so I don't feel pressure that she has to be completely in focus. I don't feel pressure that, you know, the editing has to be super realistic. It's more so, again, like I said, to convey a feeling.
Yeah, it's so cool to see all the colors pop and like, yeah, it's just like visually striking. It's so fun to look at.
So fun. And again, if you ever want to create or copy and paste the edits, you can click on develop. And I believe it's Command C. Oh, yeah. It's what is it? Command Shift. And then you can, Command Shift, you can highlight a group of images, and then you can click sync. And it will actually synchronize all of these settings for you so that you don't have to individually edit every single photo the way that you did this one. If you really like an edit, you can copy paste. And now, let's see. Now I can go in and see that all of these photos that I selected also have that same color graded edit. Just for uniform editing, creating a cohesive look. Yeah, and what's fun about this is I try to think about all the different ways I could also present this media. Like, it would be really, really cool to see like a GIF made out of this series of images. And so that's just another fun use case. You can create so many different types of files and think about all of the use cases that you would want to see these in. And now it's like a proper photo series, you know, it's like, oh yeah, you see she's singing and the crowd is singing back, and it's like a full story now.
It's so cool.
Just as easy as that. Like, it's insane. I mean, not as easy as that. Of course, it took some time to develop this discernment in my editing. But yeah, I mean, I took all these years to learn what I was doing so that I can boil it down into a 2-hour segment, just like this for you. So that way you can just jump in without wondering how or why. We've got all the secrets for you. Shout out to Adobe Live for being like such an amazing educational resource.
Yes, the best.
Yeah. Oh, these are so fun. How are we feeling, chat? I would love to know any input or questions you might have so far.
They're loving it. Chat is loving it. Anthony asked, do you usually shoot in RAW
Great
as opposed to
question.
JPEG?
Yes, I often shoot in RAW. Well, I always shoot in RAW, just because it allows a little bit more versatility, so they say, in your color grading. And what it does, I guess the most technically I can explain it is it leaves the color information like pretty neutral so that you can actually go in and add those colors yourself and have that flexibility. Ironically, for the first few years in my photography career, when I was shooting with that 70D, I had no idea that I was shooting in JPEG. And I had a photographer friend at the time, like, look at me and look at the edits I was doing. And he was just like, what are you doing? Let me change this for you. And he changed it to RAW for me. But I personally didn't find that crazy of a difference in editing JPEGs versus RAW photos. So if you are shooting in JPEG, that's okay. And it's not the end of the world. Nobody's gonna like shame you. I think that's really silly, because if you're getting the end result that you want, that's all that matters, right? But I think I would encourage you to try out editing and shooting with RAW so that you can see for yourself if there is much of a difference. I like really love the idea of just experimentation and seeing what happens, because yeah, even as recently as like last year, I was doing a cookbook actually. And I was working collaboratively, like handing my hard drive back and forth with the cook, and she was also running the creative direction. And so I would hand her all of like the raw photos that I shot and tell her to like make the selections that she wanted me to edit. But I didn't realize that the way that she was processing them, she would like open them in a different app and like save them as JPEGs. And so I was just like on autopilot, like importing her selects and editing them. And I didn't realize she was giving me JPEGs when I gave her raw photos. And I edited so many of those photos in JPEG and had no idea, but they ended up looking pretty good, which was funny to me because I had been taught that, you know, it's bad to edit JPEGs versus raw photos, and because there's less color information or it's not going to be as crisp or nice. And I beg to differ. So who knows? Myths, legends, we don't know, but we're gonna find out. Maybe I'll bring up some of those food photos tomorrow as well. We can do travel photos, food photos, portraits. I actually did a photo shoot with a friend of mine yesterday so that I could edit some fresh content as well for you. So stay tuned for that. We shot some really, really gorgeous photos.
Cool.
I can't wait to share. Exciting. Yeah. All right, let's see some of these other photos we can transform right now. Let's see. Some of these closer up ones were really fun. Yeah, let's do this wide one. I really love this little series here because she actually brought her partner on stage. If you're familiar with Black, 6LACK, they have a song together called Mushroom Chocolate, which was produced by Chuck English, who is one half of the Cool Kids. And they also just dropped an album, a triple album actually, which is incredible. But yeah, Quinn was able to bring out Black to sing Mushroom Chocolate. And I just loved their energy on stage. You can tell that they're like so just a close-knit crew, you know, even the DJ, Soraya, they had so much fun on stage. And this energy is just like infectious. And you can tell, you know, they had a blast, like singing to each other and just hanging out, you know. I love that you can like see their shoes and everything. By the way, Destiny made this custom mic stand for Quinn and it just looked so cool. Yeah. So as this loads, this again was another edit that I just copy pasted from one of the photos that I edited. We're going to reset the image. And as you can see, it's very like monochromatic when it comes in raw. And I like different colors. I like to switch it up. So let's see. A lot of the time when I'm trying to figure out what I want to actually bring out to in the composition, I do go back to that black and white setting just to kind of like look at the shapes in the photo. It cool. Really allows you to evaluate it and not think so deeply on the colors yet, but really think about like the actual structures and compositions and the contrast and the highlights and the shadows. And so I know a lot of photographers actually who start with black and white and they actually adjust from there and then go back to color, but we'll try that. That's really fun. Again, this just looks so timeless. Like this needs to go in the hallway of that venue.
That's so cool.
Printed out. Yes. You can see her smiling. Like that is a classic image. Really, really like, I love kinetic images that you can feel the movement in. You know, this feels like one of those to me. This whole set actually. But maybe it's because I remember the moment and it was very enlivening.
Definitely. Yeah, you can feel it. The energy is like, oof.
Oof. I'd love to know what your favorite things to photograph are, chat.
Yeah, let us know. Chat is doing great and everyone is super excited. We've got people shooting concept work, portraits. Bruce says he loves the camera angle for this shot.
Me too. This was shot with, I believe, a 16 millimeter to 35 lens, 2.8 f-stop. And you can see all of that information right here, by the way. I know people often like to know what settings were you using, what lens, what camera. So again, I use a 5D Mark III. I've had it for like, I don't know, 5 years or something. And this lens, I'm really actually so appreciative. Sometimes I borrow lenses, sometimes I rent lenses. I got really lucky this year. I actually moved downtown LA in 2020 and ended up living below a really amazing couple who are also photographers, filmmakers. They have a whole photo studio upstairs and they're just like so kind and generous. They sometimes let me borrow their lenses. And that was one of those days. I just like call them sometimes before a shoot and I'm like, I have a shoot in 20 minutes. Can I borrow your lens? So shout out to them for that kind of community support. I just like really appreciate whenever people generously help and they don't have to ever, you know, it's like they're not obligated to help you. But when people want to see you win and want to see you make good work, they're supportive. And you can also like borrow lenses or rent them online for pretty cheap if you ever think about like wanting to try a lens before investing a ton of money. I highly recommend like just renting some stuff and seeing how it feels, because I would not have known how much I love this lens had I not had the opportunity to try it. And now I really want to buy one because this wide angle is just everything to me. And the widest lens that I have is a 24 to 70 millimeter lens. It's a Sigma lens, and it is also 2.8. And it's like, it's great, but it's just not wide enough for me. Like, I really love that 14 or like that 12 to 16 millimeter range because it's just so cinematic. That's my favorite word, as you can tell.
It is
Yeah.
super fun, and it gives images like a really unique feel. Like it's, you know, it has like a special quality to it. You don't see it every day.
It really does. Like, I definitely wouldn't have been able to get these very dramatic kind of angles with my 24. I could have gotten close to it, but this just feels like, you know, warped in a good way. It's really giving that like worm's eye view.
Yeah, it feels like you're there, kind of.
Yeah, it's like you can jump into the photo, and that's what's special about that lens, I think. By the way, the focal length of the human eye, if you didn't know, there's a fun fact, it's 35 millimeters. So if you're shooting with a 35 millimeter film camera or anything like that, or a 35 millimeter lens, one of my favorite lenses of all time is a 35 millimeter 1.4 lens. It's a Sigma art lens, and it's just chef's kiss. And it just feels like a memory, like pulled from your brain. But I digress.
Yeah, I love that lens too.
Yeah.
Same here. It's so much fun to shoot with.
It's so fun. So for this one, let's see what's going on with these cinematic presets here. Since I've been saying cinematic so much, that actually does look like a still from a movie as I just hover over that one. Okay, putting that in my back pocket. Let's see. These just are so fun and graphic. That's like very, very contrasty in a good way. And again, you can always like adjust these presets. They're just like a really good place to start.
Sam is asking in the chat, do you have any valuable or major lessons that you learned in terms of working with clients when you first transitioned into professional photography?
Absolutely. I have tons of insight on that. I'm glad you asked. So the first thing I learned was, you know, make sure that your communication style is very, very, very succinct. You want to make sure that you have the opportunity to really you want to make sure you have the opportunity to have good communications with people and ask them like what it is that they're doing. Sorry, give me one moment.
All good. Yeah, and everyone in the chat, keep those awesome questions coming. We've got just about 20 minutes left here in our stream for today. So if you've got any questions, let us know in the chat.
Let us know. Yes. So what I was saying about communication is that, yeah, you've got to really be able to get all of the information that you can out of your client before you start working with them. You have to make sure to tackle the who, the what, the when, the why, and the how. And so what I have for future clients, I have a questionnaire that I have people fill out. And I ask them, you know, what it is that you want your audience to feel, what it is that, or who the audience is, right? You start with the who. And who are you? Who is the client, the subject? Who is the audience? Where they want to shoot? Do they want an urban environment? Do they want a nature environment? Do they want to shoot in a studio? Is it an event that they're going to be hosting that they want documented? The what, you know, what is the subject matter of the photo shoot, right? because the last thing you want is showing up to a shoot and not knowing the creative direction, the kinds of shots that the client is looking for. So a shot list is great to ask for. Let's see what else. Always be clear about your budget as well. You want to make sure that you know you are properly compensated, that you have an idea of what you're working with so that you know how much time and energy to pour into this project. You're going to approach something that you're getting paid less for, like, differently than maybe if you have a huge budget. Maybe you can add a lot of bells and whistles in that scenario. So yeah, my biggest takeaway is clarity is key. Make sure you write everything down, have a contract in order. That's like really important too, so that you both have a mutual understanding of what's going on, and have a shot list as well as like deliverables. Make sure you know what the deliverables are. Make sure you know what the turnaround time is. What else? And also the usage. You want to make sure that you're asking people how they're going to be using these photos. That matters, like, for a lot of reasons, but a few reasons are you're going to want to know how or what size to export these photos in. You're going to want to know like how long you should license these photos out for. Are they going to want to use them on social media, web, and print? You know, that's going to be a different fee than if they are only using social media or only using for their website. If they're printing or all of these extra add-ons, you're going to want to charge for that. Yeah. And also just knowing how to hold space is huge. Like if you show up on set and you are in a jumble, the client is going to feel that. You want to be as grounded and as neutral as possible. Leave all of your troubles at the door. Like don't bring that into the shoot with you, because you are holding space for that client, for that subject, for whoever it is you're photographing, and you want them to feel as comfortable as possible.
It's so true.
I hope that answered your question.
Yes, definitely. And everyone is super excited about, just kind of like the transition into professional photography. And, you know, it sounds like communication is just a huge part of it, you know, making sure everyone has their expectations are in the right place, you know?
Exactly that. Yeah. It's all about communicating, you know, because it's like, it's a service, right? You want to make sure that your client is happy, and you want to make sure that they feel heard and seen and like photographed in the best possible light in the environment and in the way that they want to be showcased. So those are all things to consider. So we've got how many more minutes? We've got about 15 minutes left. I'm like, what do y'all want to see?
Everyone is loving it. Yeah, we've got 15 minutes. So let us know, you know, any questions you guys have in the chat is fantastic. Do you have any other, anything that you'd like to show us, Amina? Anything specifically?
I think let's see. There's some more photos from a recent event I could show you. Or I could just show you some more photos on my website. It really depends on what you'd like to see. I can preview some of the stuff we'll be editing tomorrow.
Yeah, maybe let's take a look at your website, and maybe you can kind of talk us through some of the different photo shoots that you've done.
Let's do that. That's a fun one. Thanks for sticking around for my process, everyone. This has been really fun so far, and I can't wait for tomorrow to pick it back up.
Me too.
So let's see here. So as I said, I'm going to be editing a lot of these travel photos tomorrow. That's going to be a blast. And yeah. Okay, we will do the choose your own adventure. Mm-hmm. Like, what do we want to see? Do we want to see people, live music, lifestyle, studio stuff, families, events, spaces? Because I've got stories about all of these photos, everyone. Let me know.
All right. I'm just waiting a second for the...
I'll just scroll all the way down here as we wait.
Catch up. Yes. So many awesome photos. Really transports me into these locations.
That's definitely the idea. I really like want these photos to feel like portals into these memories, you know?
All right, so Bruce Gonzalez says lifestyle, and Kiss My Creative says events. So maybe we can start with lifestyle and then move to events.
Perfect. Let's do that. All right, everybody. So I've just been doing this for a really long time, and it always blows my mind to like revisit these photos because, as I said, they're literally portals into these past memories. And yeah, it was just like some of these are really, really old, really like formative years in photography. They're really special to me. This one here, this is a photo of my friend Ellie, and they are also an incredible photographer. We went on a morning hike in Mount Tamalpais in San Francisco with a couple of other photographers to just kind of like check it out and do some photos in the meantime. And that was really fun. That was definitely when I was first learning. This was one of my first freelance gigs ever that I kind of created the opportunity for, which was really fun. I really wanted to go to this music festival called Sasquatch. It was like an incredible lineup of artists, Tame Impala, The Internet. Who else was on there? Sandra Day. Who else? Florence and the Machine, Kendrick Lamar, School by Q. And yeah, I just ended up finding a company that was looking for a photographer to do lifestyle photos there. They hired me, they paid for my ticket, paid for my travel. That was incredible. And that's what I say about, or that's what I mean when I say photography has given me some of my favorite memories. Like it's brought me so many opportunities, so many like new moments. And this was a women's circle in Oakland, very like neutral editing. I was doing like the brand identity for a women's circle that was it was like a continuous one. And that was really fun too. Yeah, just lots of literal lifestyle moments, you know, various events and moments. This one was really fun, actually. That's my friend Eileen. She's holding something called a book bag. And it was this company that created these book covers for books on the go. Like if you're at a bus stop and you want to like read a book, it was a very cute idea. And so what I did for that shoot, I recreated some of my favorite memories in San Francisco. Like if you are familiar with the area, this is one of the Muni lines, the stop for the Muni line. I believe it was the M train. I could be wrong. It might be the L that went right to the beach. And yeah, I love this environment. And I stuck her right there, had her read. Good times. As you can see, I approached all of these edits pretty differently. Like this was Mecca and Kwesi, their engagement photos. And we decided to go pretty warm with those ones. Very sweet. These really take me back. So early. Back in the day, I used to like really be into exploring rooftops, that kind of thing. And this was one of my favorite rooftops in San Francisco. I would bring people up there who were visiting all the time. And it's crazy because I would seek out these views for so long. And now I live in a loft in downtown LA. And my rooftop has a view like this that I can just go up to whenever I want. It's pretty wonderful. Yeah, and just lots of different moments from life. Ugh, just good feelings, you know? Wow. This is a fun story, actually. This was a concert, a secret concert in the Sutro Baths Caves of San Francisco. And a band called Ice Cream was playing. They brought lights, power generators, amps. into the cave, and everyone had a really good time. It was just things like that, you know, might never happen again. I don't know when the next time I'm going to go to a cave show will be. And so I used to definitely be that person that brought my camera with me everywhere I went, just to make sure I didn't miss a moment, you know? So fun.
So cool. There needs to be more cave shows.
Right. Like, where are the cave shows at? So that is the lifestyle section. So many days at Dolores Park. Someone was showing me around Queens in New York, and we went out to eat. It was so good. Wow. Yep. Good times. Good times.
So good.
Let's check out some of the events, huh?
Let's check them out. And we've got about 5 minutes left in our stream today.
All righty. Any last words, anyone? Please get in your questions, your requests, your ideas, your reflections, so that way I know what you're looking for tomorrow. All right. Yeah, this was, again, some of that women's circle stuff I was talking about. It was really fun events. This is a shot from Outside Lands Music Festival, a moment at Coachella. I was actually working with the lemonade stand people doing their lifestyle photography. And so I found these really cool dressed people, asked them to stand in front of this art installation holding this lemonade, just like a subtle little product placement moment, you know? This was a really, really cool event at SF MoMA. It was like celebrating the release of a soap bottle, actually. And they had people creating these live visuals, like with, I think it was like ink and something else. It was like ink and water and reflections. It was kind of crazy.
Trippy.
Yeah, I've shot a lot of like conferences and music festivals and all that kind of thing. I actually really enjoy shooting conferences and festivals and just like immersive experiences in general. It's really a joy of mine for sure. Yeah, as you can see, just very, very dynamic work style. I've had to learn to shoot in a lot of different styles throughout the years, with just saying yes to a variety of types of images, you know? And now I have a little bit more space to pick and choose what it is I'm wanting to edit or shoot. But all of these are like really, I'm fond of all of these memories. This was actually a really interesting event that I shot years ago when I had no idea what blockchain was. But I was shooting a lot of events for like Google and YouTube and this place called sap.io, and they were diving into blockchain. And that was the first time I heard about blockchain, which is huge these days. If you are familiar with Web3 and NFTs, it's all based on blockchain technology. So maybe we'll get into more of that tomorrow as well.
Definitely.
But yeah, so much. Like, I wouldn't have experienced many of these moments had it not been for photography and just let into so many different worlds. You know, this was a, what does that say? House keys, not handcuffs. It was a auction that was benefiting the houseless population in San Francisco. And I just think that was so cool that art was able to fund like some housing initiatives, you know? It's like something that at first was abstract, was then turned into money, which was then put to good use. And that's why I'm really passionate about art and photography and, you know, just raising money in general and using it as alchemy, because something that didn't exist before can all of a sudden be worth so much money. And then that money can be used for, you know, whatever you want it to be used for. It's pretty cool. Money is just energy after all. So, so many fun events over the years. Yeah.
It's so good. Well, Amina, it is time for us to go ahead and wrap for the day. Oh, this has been so good to see your approach to working and your work with colors. You've inspired me. I want to put more color in my work now. I'm so excited. And
I'm so glad.
yeah, don't forget everyone, we're going to be back tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Pacific for part 2 with Amina. So be sure to join us there. She's going to edit more photos in Lightroom Classic and Photoshop. Also, stick around for the latest Illustrator Creative Challenge with Jack Watson, immediately followed by creating branding identity with Andrew. Oh, so good. So excited. Amina, thank you so much. And I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Thanks everyone in the chat.
Thank you, Aaron.
We'll see you soon.